Do you have Scandinavia on your bucket list? Well, if you didn't before, you will after this episode. Joanne McCoy shares her immersive experiences in Scandinavia, delving into the cultural wonders of Denmark, Sweden, and Norway. Joanne has previously joined me to discuss her experience hiking the Camino de Santiago. Joanne, a proud native of Maryland, has made Frederick her home for nearly 4 decades. Traveling with her husband Jim is her greatest joy. She also enjoys reading, blogging, playing word games, studying Irish history, watching independent films, listening to live music, and cheering on her beloved New York Mets, even during their most disappointing seasons. Welcome to Roaming Yeti's Travel Beyond the Guidebook, where we help our busy fellow adventurers maximize their limited vacation time. I'm your host and head Yeti, Beth Scalacci. I'm here to share stories, hidden gems, and insider tips to help you plan trips that are unique and meaningful to you. In each episode, I delve into the world of pop culture destinations, theme parks, roadside attractions, and nostalgic locations. And you know what? We're uncovering their secrets and backstories. Are you ready? Let's roam. Welcome back to the show. In this week's episode, I am thrilled to be welcoming back Joanne McCoy to the show to discuss her 2-week trip to Scandinavia. Another one of my well, Joanne knows my opinion on bucket lists, but we'll talk
Me
about
too. I
that later.
share it. I share it.
I know. If you haven't listened though to her Camino de Santiago episode, please add that to your to listen list. It's amazing. Still such an inspiring trip. But Joanne, thank you so much for coming back on the show and sharing your latest adventure.
Thank you for inviting me. It's always fun to see you.
I feel like you're the one that you're the one that should have the travel podcast.
Oh,
But you're too busy traveling, so I'll
I don't
just
know
keep
about
having you on to share. That'll be the
that. That works for me.
sounds good. Um, so tell me a little bit about this trip. I know it was to Scandinavia for two weeks, right? So where give us a sort of lowdown on what you did, where you visited.
Okay. Well, I guess one of the things I could have done is looked up what the geographical definition of Scandinavia is. But I can tell you that we went to three countries in
Okay.
Scandinavia. And this was last fall, late September and early October. Now, we were only in Denmark and Sweden for a couple of days. It was more of a drive-by than anything else. But that was really okay because the time was limited, and Norway was really the main event,
Okay.
and that's where we spent most of our time, over a week.
I mean, that's so like, is there more to do in Norway? Do you think that's why because you were on a guided trip, right?
That's true. And I'll take a second to just explain. We were always, my husband and I, independent travelers for a lot of years. And then we got up in our 70s and we took a kind of a boutique guided tour with a company called Gate One. And we really liked it. I mean, what we like especially about Gate One is that they take care of transportation and accommodations and some side trips, but they also give you a lot of free time, a lot of
Okay.
time to explore on your own. And that's the balance that we're really looking for. So this was a Gate One tour, I think our third that we've done in recent years. Um, the groups aren't too big. They're reasonably priced, and the guides are good. They're local, but their English is excellent, and of course, in most cases, they're native speakers of the language. So no matter what kind of jam you get in, they can talk you out of it. So we kind of like the confidence of that. So this was a Gate One tour, and certainly won't be wasn't our first, and it won't be our last.
See, that's the kind of recommendation I like to hear. It's like if it's not your last, that's always the best kind of recommendation.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. This is not luxury. I have to say that though.
Okay.
If they do, they manage your bags for you, taking them in and out, which is always great. But one of my rules is make sure you can handle your own bag if you need to. If you
Hmm.
can't lift it up in the overhead compartment or get it on and off a train, it's too heavy. Open it up again before you leave the house and take out all those extra cute shoes and things that are really weighing it down. But they do manage those things for you that are good. They come up with the itineraries, which
Mm.
are always interesting and diverse. And they book us in authentic hotels and restaurants.
Oh, okay.
I'm not interested in the Copenhagen Best Western or the Oslo Holiday Inn. That doesn't do it for me.
Hmm.
They have places that are reflective of the culture, which in Scandinavia meant wooden floors instead of carpets, duvets instead of, the traditional top sheet, bottom sheet kind of thing. Everything is natural materials, so if
Mm.
you unless you request a foam pillow. Some people can't manage a down pillow because they're very customer service oriented too. But all of the places that Gate One booked us on for this tour were reflective of the Scandinavian aesthetic,
Okay.
which was comfortable, but sort of lean and spare. They don't have a lot of fancy toiletries and stuff like that, but that wasn't part of what we were looking for. So gate
Right.
one suits us, but I would suggest that people, they know what they need as a standard of
Right.
comfort and luxury. Um, so I would just suggest that people look into a couple different ones, different tour groups, because there certainly are plenty out there.
Yes, that's for sure. Yeah. Look for your level of comfort and itineraries for sure.
Hmm.
Is this a trip that like you guys had on your to-do list or your dream list or is this, is this always a goal to get to Norway?
Well, that's an interesting question and one that I thought about a little bit because I thought you might ask me. And I figured out there's a real combination of reasons that it kind of drew me to Scandinavia. I've always been fascinated by the Northern Lights.
Mm.
There's something just magical, mythical, otherworldly about them. And I've seen many pictures, many videos. I've never seen them for myself. And spoiler alert, we didn't see them.
Oh no.
But that's okay. We could talk a little bit more about that later. But
Mhm.
yeah, the Northern Lights were the first magnet, I guess, that started to draw me. And if you ever, I mean, my husband's big on nature shows, so we watch a lot of nature shows sometimes. They're very relaxing. And the ones that I've seen on Norway, especially, that show the fjords,
Mhm.
that's another like really just special place. The fjords and the landscapes in Scandinavia are absolutely gorgeous. And when I travel, I like the cities, I really do, but I also love the countryside and the scenery and getting to see what that looks like in other countries. Speaking of cities, the Scandinavian cities are extremely clean and
Mm.
efficiently run. Transportation is fantastic. Most people have not one but two bikes,
Oh.
and they will ride themselves on a bike in packs, by the way. So be careful. That's the biggest danger is being taken out by a pack of bikes, because I'm talking 50 to 100 people riding together. I don't know how they do it,
Oh my
but
gosh.
it's a stampede of, and it's we made it through. Nobody was hit or even had a close call, but our guide would stand, sort of by the edge of the sidewalk and let us know literally, hey, there's something coming around the corner, and it would be literally just a mass, a flock of people on their bikes. So a lot of them have a nice bike that they keep at home for weekend jaunts, but then they have a bike that they ride to and from work or to and from the tram or bus or train station.
Mm,
So
okay.
they drive to the trams, leave their bike there, take the tram a stop or two to work or school, and then they come back, hop on that same bike again, and go home. So this is their like used bike, not really great bike. I mean, they lock it, but it's still more vulnerable than their really nice bike that they
Yeah.
keep at home for their 100-mile round trip field trips on the weekends. Um, so the whole way they run their cities was interesting to me. And I had happened across a book called The Year of Living Danishly. And
Okay.
it was about a British couple who are transferred to Denmark. And then they decide, in for a penny, in for a pound, and decide to adopt all the ways of life that are characteristic of the Danish, and then assess their moods and their feelings and their general outcome for doing that. That was so interesting.
Hmm.
And actually, the Scandinavian people have a reputation for being some of the most contented in the world. Now,
Right.
who measures this stuff, how they do it? I
Right.
can't help you. But I bought that. So I thought, okay, let me go and investigate that. I think Viking stuff is super cool and
Hmm.
interesting. I've watched all the shows on TV, I've read, I've seen the movies, and I also found out that I did the 23andMe ancestry testing. I'm 92% Irish and 8% Scandinavian.
Oh, well, there you
How in
go.
the world did that happen? But
Interesting.
the, yeah, but if you look at a map, um, Scandinavia is not that far from Western Ireland, and all my
Oh,
people
true.
are from Mayo and Sligo. So there are lots of stories about Vikings coming down by sea because they were seafaring people, and landing on the western shore of Ireland and coming ashore and behaving badly, if you know what I mean. There could be that, but I also had someone tell me, look, the Viking invasion of Western Ireland happened, but more than that, there were ancient Scandinavian people who just plain, took a ship, sailed down because they were looking for a plot of land, arable land, and a new start. So it
Mm.
wasn't always bad behavior.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was just plain immigration. So that kind of tipped my interest in Scandinavia. And then finally, they have that whole, now it's spelled Hygge. Have you seen that word?
Oh, Huga. Hug.
That good woman.
Huga.
That is
Hey,
how they pronounce it.
I'm I know that how to pronounce it because of Frozen the musical. That's how.
Okay.
There's a song by Oaken, and it's my favorite song of the whole show. So, yes, that's how I know.
Yeah, well, I was shocked because, I've been, it's kind of come to America as a
Yep.
trend
Yep.
over the past few years. And of course, I thought it was Higgy or something because it's Hygge.
Hmm.
But we quickly learned in country that it is Hygge. And what it is, it's not a decorating style, it's really like a whole cultural thing. And it's reflected in the way many Scandinavians decorate their homes, but it's also how they approach life. It's sort of laid back, friendly, cozy, welcoming, hospitable. And one of the things that I just loved is that it was pretty cold when we were there,
Mm.
and they still had their outdoor seating, almost all the restaurants and bars, but they all have blankets and pillows and candles and lots of cozy stuff so that you can just sit there with your warm drink and wrap your hands around it and have, just the fires going, and sometimes just the heat lamps, but it's just this warm, welcoming, kind of all-inclusive big hug of a approach. I love that stuff. That whole Huga thing just was like, yeah, I'll take some. So yeah, it was a real combination of things that made us want to go. And I'm so glad that we went. I don't know if we'll ever return, only because there's so many places I want to go.
Right.
So I don't know, but this was a great trip to be on because the itinerary was jam-packed. In fact, it was whirlwind, and it had one of those. If any of our listeners are under like 50 years old, they probably will not remember the movie that was out years ago called If This Is Tuesday, It Must Be Belgium. Do you remember it?
I don't
Oh
remember
my
that
gosh,
one.
you don't remember it. someone out there listening will remember. And it was about one of these like super fast bus trips throughout Europe. It was pretty funny. It might have had Jack Lemmon in it, and that usual cast of characters. But anyway, it was funny, and this had a little bit of that quality only because we moved, but we saw a lot, and especially since it was meant to be an overview tour,
Right.
I really have no complaints, but it did definitely have that quality to it. That's
So
for sure.
so were you on planes, trains, and automobiles on this trip or
Yes, we
yes.
were. And also motor coaches, which
Okay.
I used to call buses,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not what they like to call it.
Okay.
You go by motor coach. So motor coaches are fine with me. They were
Yeah.
comfortable, adjustable seats,
There you
had a
go.
little airplane trays in front, chargers for your phone. Yeah, that was okay. Wasn't too bad.
Nice.
But yeah, we were on just about all of those.
And so I don't want you to go through your whole because it sounds like the itinerary was jam-packed, but like what were some of your favorite things that you did?
Well, Denmark, as I said, was just a very short
Hmm.
stopover, and we looked at all the palaces and the beautiful buildings and the museums for about an hour or two, because that's not why I travel. I mean, I like to go to the seats of government because I think it's a sign of respect,
Hmm.
but that's not where I like to hang. I
No.
want to be where the people are, where the tradition is, the history is. So in Copenhagen, I loved the Harbor District, which
Hmm.
was just very colorful, and you could walk along, grab coffee, grab something to eat, do a little shopping, although I'm kind of done with buying stuff
Right.
because I'm getting older and that's enough. But anyway, that was great memories of the Harbor District in Denmark. That was lots of fun. And then we jumped on our motor coach and drove around the city. And the guide pointed out different things along the way. And we hopped on and hopped off. The weather was terrible in Denmark. Awful. It
Mm.
was cold, driving rain, but you know, that's what those people deal with. So I was okay dealing with it. It felt authentic. And have you ever seen pictures of the Little Mermaid statue?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. And of course, probably the film is the Disney film's probably based on the Nordic myth of the Little Mermaid. I don't know that for sure. Again,
Yeah.
something I should have looked up.
Yeah, I think it's either that or Hans Christian Andersen write about it? I'm not really sure. That is not one of my favorite tales.
Okay, well, I think you're right. I think Hans Christian Andersen did write about it.
Yeah.
But anyway, the Little Mermaid statue is in the harbor, and it
Nice.
was, a bronze statue done by Edvard Eriksson some time ago. And I've seen pictures of it for years and years. I was looking forward to seeing it. It's like about as big as a Cabbage Patch doll or an
Oh,
American Girl. It's really small. But if
huh.
nothing's in the picture for contrast or perspective, I guess is a better word, you're not going to realize it. But yeah, it was really small. It was very detailed and really neat. And we took our pictures with the Little Mermaid. But yeah, she was a bit of a surprise.
Interesting.
Um, and then we kind of went back to the hotel and just hung out with the people on the tour, which are always one of the most wonderful things on a Gate One tour because I met some wonderful people and we would just hang out, talk, learn about each other. So that was a big part of the trip too.
Hmm.
But like I said, that was Denmark. We were done. But the next morning, um, we drove to Sweden. To get to Sweden, you have to go over the Oresund Bridge,
Okay.
which is 5 miles long and a really big deal to them. But if you've been crossing the Chesapeake Bay Bridge to get to the Eastern Shore for most
Hmm.
of your life, like I know I have, that's 4.6 miles long. So it didn't feel like any
Yeah.
enormous experience to go over the 5 mile bridge. But that's what you do to get to Sweden by
But was
bus. Oh,
was that bridge less scary though? Like the Bay Bridge to me is parts of it are so nerve-wracking.
I hear you, but I guess driving across the bridge, the Chesapeake Bay Bridge,
Hmm.
I've trained myself not to look to the right and left and to
Gotcha.
just pretend it's a road. Just
Right.
look straight ahead and the 10 or 20 feet in front of you or whatever you're supposed to do when you're driving behind the wheel. So it was okay. And going by bus, I mean
Mm,
motor coach,
motor coach.
was better anyway because it wasn't my job to keep us from plunging into the, water below. So anyway, that was just a couple of miles before we got to Sweden, and mostly stopped at little towns, which again was a big favorite of mine
Hmm.
because you get to just kind of merge into the current of the town and hang out for a little bit. So that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed our trip through Sweden, even though it was not very intense and it wasn't a very deep dive, but I knew
Hmm.
that. So,
Right.
you accept it. Um, and we got to Norway, as I said, pretty quickly. And that was another place with lots of small towns and farmers markets with um, high quality crafts made by the townspeople, really interesting food made from local ingredients. In some cases, we heard some live music that was sort of spontaneous. And in one little town, Fredrikstad, we saw a performance by the kids in the school in the town, and they were out doing little, uh, you know, choir performances and dramatic skits and stuff, and all the parents were there. So it was kind of cool. It felt like we just
Yeah.
wandered into, real life, and that was a lot of fun. So that ended up being one of my favorite Scandinavian memories. That was.
Cool. Yeah, I
And even
always
though I'm
love
not the
those.
huge, yeah, it was sort of a random, wow, this was lucky type of experience that you really can't plan for.
Hmm.
But we followed the crowd. We had stopped there to have lunch, and there was of course, the typical tourist section with lots of little shops and places you could eat and all of that. But we saw a lot of people with strollers and kids on their shoulders kind of going in this direction. They all seem to be going in the same direction. So I thought, let's follow them. Where are they going? They live here.
Right.
So maybe they know something we don't know. And sure enough, they were going to the farmer's market and, grabbing street food and watching the performances. And that was, one of my favorite afternoons on the trip, as I said. But
Yeah.
um, I guess in stark contrast to that was Oslo, which we got to a few hours later, and that's the capital largest city in Norway. Um, so you'd think right away that I wouldn't be all that excited, but I was. It was fun. We went to the Oslo Opera House, which is a new building. It's all white marble. It's on the water, and it's elegant and gorgeous. And Gate One had made arrangements for us to do a behind the scenes look at the Oslo Opera House.
Cool.
They were getting ready for their next production. So this
Hmm.
was all the things that go on, the staging, the rehearsals, the blocking of the actors and the dancers. That was all going on. So there was no photos allowed. Um, and it was sort of this sense again of being very lucky and fortunate to be allowed in. We didn't see a whole lot of others while we were there. So, other tourists. That was a fun thing. And I think most people have seen The Scream by Edvard Munch.
Hmm.
You know that with the hands up by the
Yeah.
face.
Yep.
And there's a whole museum
Oh,
devoted to that. And I mean, there's more things in it, but it's called the Munch Museum. So we went to that and saw the picture and saw a line of about 100 international tourists. It wasn't just us standing by the scream, mimicking that. Can you picture that with
yep.
their hands up to their face? Like not actually screaming, but mimicking the face and then having their friends take pictures or taking selfies of them mimicking the real picture of the screen.
There you go.
So that was kind of a fun little kitschy thing that I guess it was pretty predictable that that'd be going on. There's a sculpture park in Oslo. It's called, and forgive my pronunciation if it's horribly
Oh,
wrong.
I
It's
am
been a
the
while.
queen of mispronunciation. Anyone who listens, no, I mispronounce everything, so go for it.
Well, Vigeland Sculpture Park. It has it's an outdoor garden and it's got 200 sculptures. And one thing that's noteworthy about that is that they're all naked.
Oh,
Yes, all of them, because the sculptor thought by putting clothes on them, he would thus date them. And he wanted his artwork to be timeless.
hmm.
So, I mean, none of it is, X-rated or anything, but
Right, right.
yeah, there's not a shred of clothing in sight. They're all naked, but that was a fun place to just walk around a little bit, and I think Jim and I found a place to sit down and have lunch because there's no such thing as fast food over there. It takes a
Mhm.
while to get served. Well, yeah, of course there is. There's the usual, imported fast food restaurants, but they also have nice little cafes, fantastic bread. This is the bread capital of the world. Great, types of fish. You can always find something fast, but reasonably healthy. And that was kind of a nice surprise.
So I,
And then a little bit later that day, we went to a museum, a seafaring museum that
hmm.
kind of showed a ship called the Fram, which was the ship that explored the South Pole. Really interesting um, information about that. And finally, the Kon-Tiki Museum, which was that raft I read about when I was in like the
Oh,
fourth grade.
okay.
Yeah, Thor
I was like,
Heyerdahl
I was like,
was his name.
the name is familiar, so I was like, wait, what?
What is that? Yeah, right. So
Okay.
the Kon-Tiki, again, I'm showing my age, but that was really kind of interesting because I'd read the book and been fascinated by it as a kid.
Mhm.
Um, but sadly, the Viking Museum, which was one of the things I was really looking forward to, was closed for construction.
Oh no.
Yeah. So again, when people say what's the most important thing to pack when you travel, it's a little bit cute of an answer, but I always say flexibility
Yep.
because you just don't know. And if you're going to be a perfectionist like I am naturally, then, something like that would just ruin your day. And yeah, you can't have that or as infrequently comparatively as we get to travel. You have to just learn how to bounce and say, oh, well, and find a Wikipedia article and read it and just be done with it. So, and I'm almost done here. I mean, like you said, it was such a whirlwind trip trying to just hit the highlights, but a lot of people remember the 1994 Winter Olympics
Hmm.
in Lillehammer
Yep.
because that was the famous Olympics where an American figure skater, Tanya Harding's boyfriend,
Oh.
kneecapped Nancy Kerrigan. Oh my God, that was a drama that played out all over the world. But anyway, it's a very adorable little town. The ski lift is still there.
Oh, good.
So we made a stop there and spent a little while. Mostly because it happened to be by this little town called Lom, Lom,
Mm.
which has these stave churches. I can't
Yep.
explain what they are. Have you heard of them?
Well, the Disney girl in me.
Yeah, yeah.
The in Epcot, that's what the building when you walk into Norway, that tall building is a stave church, is a replica. It's supposed to be a replica or a representation of a stave church.
Yeah, and I probably the best way to describe it is it sort of looks like a medieval church that you
Mhm.
would see. I mean, they date back to the 11th century, and some of the best preserved ones are in this little town of Loam, and there's quite a few of them. They still hold services, um, and that was a fun little living history stopover that we made. Um, but coming up was probably one of my favorite parts of the trip, and it was a long motor coach ride, but my gosh, the views out the window were just never to be seen again, I don't think. They were just gorgeous. Now, we went over what they call the roof of Norway. which is the
Hmm.
highest mountain pass in Northern Europe, and it's called. And if I pretend I'm a character in Frozen, maybe you wouldn't tell that I'm mispronouncing this so bad, but it's the Sognafjellet. No, that sounds Spanish or Mexican. Yeah, anyway, forget it. It's the highest mountain pass in Northern Europe, the roof of
Cool.
Norway. And I mean, you go by glaciers and
Oh,
just the
wow.
thickest, densest forests. The air just smells like a Christmas tree farm everywhere
Mm.
you go. And it was just jaw-dropping. That was absolutely beautiful. It was a long day, very remote and rural. We didn't pass through any cities, any towns, just pretty much this open space that when you think of Norway or Scandinavia, that's the little snippet that I will have in my mind. One of them. It's a collage. I can't say there's just one thing because the
Hmm.
next day we went on a cruise of the longest and deepest Norwegian fjord. It's
Hmm.
called the Sognefjord, and that's pretty good. That
That
sounded a
was
little
that that
Norwegian.
was
Did you
that
like
was
that?
very I like that.
Yeah, okay, that one. That is the longest and deepest of the Norwegian fjords. And I mean, it was as silent as a tomb, but in the very
Ooh.
best way. And the little, what would you call it? Boat. It wasn't really a ship, but the boat was glassed in all the way around, especially out the back. So that, and I don't know what kind of engine it was, but it was practically silent. And, you could go in the front, get something to eat and talk to people, but in the back of the boat, they had long bench seating that almost looked like pews in a church. And I
Mm.
don't know if it was the combination of the glass and the pews, but the people who were sitting back there were mostly sort of meditating or thinking, or it felt really kind of sacred. It was a very I don't know, almost holy
Hmm.
experience. I mean, you could do whatever you wanted. You could go
Right.
in the front, like I said, if that wasn't your scene. But it was really kind of nice after all this racing around Scandinavia to just
Exactly.
sort of sit there and in total quiet, watch the wake of the ship and how that sort of framed this gorgeous glacial formation on either side with waterfalls now and then. And talk about a quintessential Scandinavian scene.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that was that was absolutely outstanding. I'm still not done yet. Do I have time to tell you two more quick
You're good.
things?
Keep going. No.
Okay, all right. Um, so we get off the fjord cruise, and there's a really cute village. Again, the villages I could not get enough of. They were so quaint and authentically quaint, which I loved with the
Right.
crafts and the foods and all that. That was fun. And then there was a railway that called the Flam Railway, and we hopped aboard that for a 12-mile trip, about 3,000 feet, not straight up, but close, into Norway's high glacial regions.
Okay.
Um, and that again, it stopped at a few different places, and they had just had a tremendous amount of rain. So the waterfalls and the rivers were just swollen and so dramatic, even more so than ever. So being able to see that, from the overhangs and overpasses was also really a treat. Um, so we continued over the mountain, and then the bus did it again. Motor coach met us at the bottom of the mountain and took us to Bergen for the night. And so that's a pretty long day. But again, someone else is doing the driving.
True.
I don't sleep on public transportation usually, but you can still relax, talk to people, listen to music or an audiobook or something. And um, the trip to Bergen, was basically after dark, so we didn't see an awful lot.
Hmm.
But we got to Bergen in time to hit our hotel And then when we woke up, we had a couple days to explore Bergen, which is Norway's second largest city, second
Oh,
only
okay.
to Oslo. And it's one of Europe's busiest maritime ports and has
Hmm.
been since the 11th century. So that's another favorite memory was exploring Bergen. They have a great outdoor fish market with a restaurant attached. And Jim and I aren't foodies really. Like we don't experiment an awful lot with the food we eat. But this just was again so fresh. The fish was brought right in
Mm.
from the pier and prepared. So I'd have to say the fish market dinner in Bergen was one of the five best meals I've ever had. It was just
Wow.
wonderful. And of course, the ambiance was nice. You're sitting in a, kind of a communal place overlooking the harbor at Bergen and good service, good food, really nice experience. So
Nice.
that's kind of my my whirlwind little summary of our 11 days in Scandinavia.
Yeah, you guys were definitely moving. And so I did not hear in all that description. So you did, and you said it before, but you definitely did not get to see the Northern Lights.
We
Was it
did
was that
not,
time of year or what sort of happened there?
well, I think, Northern Lights are really unpredictable.
Okay.
Like in the US, there were some places
Which
that were able to see them a couple of weeks ago. So what's
true.
that about?
So
They're
true.
just, you know, um, there wasn't a whole lot I would do differently,
Okay.
but some of the travelers that we were with had done so many Gate One tours that they were aware of how to kind of fashion a little expedition at the beginning and end of the tour, even though they're not packaged and can be ordered as such.
Mm-hmm.
They were very experienced. So they did a 3-day trip up to Finland
Oh.
and saw gorgeous displays of the
Mm-hmm.
Northern Lights. And Finland is not an expensive country. I mean, we were right there. So I think if I had it to do over again, I would, and had the knowledge then that I have now, I would have taken a little trip up to Finland for the weekend and seen my Northern Lights. I haven't given up on them because I do want to go other places. A third
Mm-hmm.
of Norway is within the Arctic Circle, which surprised me.
Oh,
So
okay.
it seemed like, there were places that we might have seen them within Norway, but I would have followed our friends, Tim and Gracie, up to Helsinki and then the outer environs and seen the Northern Lights. Might have opted to do an excursion to Amsterdam on
Mm-hmm.
the way there because we flew from Dulles to Amsterdam and then Amsterdam down to Copenhagen. So, you know, looking back on it, we could have spent 2 or 3 days in Amsterdam and gone to the Anne Frank Museum and
Mm.
um, some of the other remarkable sites that there are in Amsterdam. But we just decided to keep it simple. Um, and we did not do that. But of course, now rested and, it's like, oh, we should have gone to Amsterdam. We should have gone to Finland. We should have been gone a month. But anyway, something to consider.
Yeah,
Airfare's expensive, even if you get a good ticket. And if you get over there, you're so close to so many other countries. It's always a good idea to think if it makes sense
right.
to do anything else. So anyway, that item, Northern Lights, that rolls over in my list.
The good thing is there's a lot of places you can see that from. Like you don't have to
Yes,
specifically go back there.
that's
Well,
true.
I mean, you could have apparently drove up to Rochester a few weeks ago and seen it. So,
That's right. Some of those pictures were just amazing.
yeah. Of course, we were
But
not there at that time, so
oh, oh.
it's all right. It's all right. We we had a cloudy eclipse and missed that. So, that's all right.
Yeah,
Next time. But
yeah.
but it it just seems like such a it, for a group trip, um, it was seemed very culturally immersive. Am I saying the right word? Yeah. Um, so that you got to experience. It's what I love so much about our Adventures by Disney China trip is we saw the big tourist things, but we also had smaller immersive times. So like, what was I think your favorite part seemed to be going into these smaller towns and being almost part of the locals. Is that something you always like to do when you're on trips?
Yes, I think that's something I learned about myself on this trip.
Hmm.
Um, Long story short, I had a knee injury and not happened on the trip, but beforehand, and we weighed whether we should even go. And we thought, yeah, yeah, we're going to go. Because actually, this was the third time we had tried to go. We had
Oh
tried to
wow.
go before the pandemic, and then it was canceled. It was supposed to have been September of 2020, first of all, and then that got canceled. And then the following year, so many things were only operating at half speed
Hmm.
that the tour company decided they couldn't provide us with the experience that we needed or wanted or deserved and had paid for. So
Hmm.
then I think the following year there was something we had. So, it just kept carrying over. And um, so finally we were able to go. So we had travel insurance and we were thinking of, waiting until, I had totally rehabbed the knee. But instead I thought, even though it's a group tour, I am an adult. And if I don't feel like traipsing around,
Right.
the Danish parliament, which I could care less about, then I can just say, thanks, you all. I'm going to sit in this place out here, this bench, feed the birds or something,
Hmm.
And so that's what I did, which was good for me because I'm kind of a go with the flow person. Don't do disruptive stuff. Don't say, I'm not going here, I'm not going there. Just very kindly and pleasantly say, guys, you go on without me. So that
Right.
was a good little experience for me. And I had a great time, drank way too much coffee, learned a little bit, learned a little bit of the language, watched the parents push their kids on the swings and the, playgrounds. I really enjoyed that type of experience. So you're right. I learned that a lot of the palaces and the buildings are, they're great for local color, but what really left me with my best memories were my encounters with the people
Hmm.
and the scenery, the landscapes, little towns, um, and things like that. So I didn't feel like I missed anything by choosing what made the most sense for me and my mobility problems.
Right. Um, and so you said you had a lot of the nice thing is you had free time. Did you sort of just go with the flow on that free time, or had you done research ahead of time and sort of pick things you wanted to see? How did you approach that?
Yeah, we did actually. Uh, had chosen to do a few things. I always do a lot of reading about the destination that we're going, even if we're going with a guided tour. And I knew that like the tram was inexpensive and easy to navigate. And so you could hop on that and go out to a ferry and take the ferry out um, and go around to all the little islands that surround, you know, the Denmark area.
Hmm.
So we did that.
Nice.
Um, yeah, but we also took naps. You know, I used to have this idea that I had to literally make every single moment count, and that meant, always being out and about. But there was something really nice in the afternoon sometimes, like we'd get back to the room at 3 or 4, and they don't eat dinner till a little bit later on the continent, although they do try to accommodate a lot of Americans who like to eat closer to 6. But yeah, you don't eat till later. And some people would go to a bar and have a drink, but we would often just go back to the room and, lay down under that duvet and listen to the rain, which we heard a lot of on the skylights, and just sort of drift off. And, you know, those were great experiences too. So, yeah, naps are our friend when we travel, and they're not wasted time. They actually fortify you for being able to stay up a little later. Um,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah. So
You were embracing hygge. Like that's what you were doing. That was
thank
a
you, Beth.
cultural
Thank you.
experience. You're
That's
welcome.
right. And that was a very respectful thing for us to do,
It was
wasn't it?
definitely. I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah, I think I have found I definitely was more of a go 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 on vacation, and now I am go go rest.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
love those in between moments of conversations and just resting and taking things in more rather than um it's I think it's that enjoying that sort of journey more than just get to the next activity, destination, and experience. Like it's just it's traveling your way, and I'm all
Mhm.
about that. So yes, a nap, especially in Europe, man, jet lag in Europe kills me every time. So
Yeah.
um
Well, and there's the I think the conventional wisdom about jet lag that I've always heard, since so many of us, do the overnight trip, and then we get there in the morning, and with the time difference and all of that business, and then you're supposed to stay up, just power through, don't take a nap, power through, or you won't be able to sleep at night, and it'll be days and days until you get online. But I haven't I've been flying in the face of that in recent years, and taking a nap in the early afternoon,
mhm.
and then going out and doing whatever's planned for the evening or socializing. And I have not had any problem falling asleep at a reasonable hour, because you are up and at 'em that next day, and you got to
Right.
be prepared for that, because it is jam-packed. They take their responsibility of giving you a good taste of the country seriously. And so that means, up for breakfast, out the door, body count, and away you go. So, you're not going to be sleeping in much. So, yeah, I
Mhm.
don't have, it works for me to take naps, even on the first day, to try to get that jet lag behind me.
Yep. You mentioned it was cold and it's rainy, so in addition to raincoats and probably a winter coat, what else what else did you pack? Like what should we know about that?
Yeah. Well, again, conventional wisdom, it's always layers,
Hmm.
bring your layers, because you really do need those. We did have some days that it got quite warm and sunny.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. And again, you don't want to overpack, but I'm a believer in wool, which sounds awful, but wool actually keeps you warm when you need to, and it also will keep you relatively cool because it's natural and it breathes.
Hmm.
And it doesn't need to be washed as often.
Mm.
So, I often buy things that are quick dry, that you
Hmm.
can just shirts and undergarments that you can wash in the sink and then just hang up, and in the morning they're ready to go.
Yeah.
That was a trick I learned on the Camino when I did
Hmm.
that long hike and we were carrying everything on our backs. You would really only have two of what you needed, one to be clean and one to be dirty. So some of those lessons have kind of gone over to this. But yeah, you're right. That waterproof coat, even just a poncho is
Okay.
okay. Just something that crushes pretty small that you can
Hmm.
have with you at all times, because it doesn't do any good if it's back in the hotel room.
Right.
So something that you stick in your backpack or crossbody bag, which is what I like to take when I
Hmm.
travel. Um, so yeah, and I don't like socks and I don't wear them very much, but you need them in
Hmm.
Scandinavia or you will freeze. So, again, the wool socks are good because you don't need
Hmm.
to bring a million pairs. Neutrals, people talk about a capsule wardrobe
Hmm.
at home. Um, but I try to take a capsule wardrobe when I travel, which is just like one cut, like one pair of jeans, two pair of black pants,
Okay.
and then everything on top pretty much matches anything that you bring with it. So, don't bring anything that's like a statement piece
Right.
that doesn't go with anything
With
else.
everything
That's
else.
not good planning. And if you can make um, a piece do double duty, that's always smart. Like I always wear my bathing suit cover up to bed
Okay.
because that's fine, you know. Um, so yeah, that's about it. And like I said, just the most important thing is lay out everything you think you're going to bring before you go and put away half of it. And then pack what is left. And you know what? They have stores where you're
Yeah.
going, which took me a while to kind of figure out that if you forget some sort of toiletry or whatever, guess what? They have it.
Yeah.
Um, so I try not to stress the packing business a whole lot because there's really, except for your own personal medications that you
Right.
need,
Yeah.
and I'm sure there's a way to get those overseas too. Thankfully, I've never had to, but um, there's very little you can't live without.
Right.
So, yeah,
Yeah. Which is always good. Um,
yeah.
so when we were talking before I hit record, uh, when we were catching up, um, you mentioned something to me that is just really, I think, really cool and really interesting, and I would love for the listeners to hear about it, is that you build playlists and sort of to create that mood even before you get there. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Okay. This is something I picked up years ago, and I've kind of been expanding on it in recent years. And it really helps me create a feeling before, during, and after the
Hmm.
trip by making the trip sort of multisensory. And what I mean by that is if you go on Spotify or whatever music service you use and Google like Nordic songs or something like that, you will find playlists of music that is popular in Scandinavia. And it's not just ABBA and AHA and that kind of stuff. They have classical, they have a lot of Nordic folk, which actually
Hmm.
sounds a lot like Irish folk, again, because of the closeness of those
Hmm.
two countries. So I go through the playlists and I alter them a little bit and I get rid of the ones that don't do anything for me and I create a playlist and I start listening to that before we go to sort of dip my toe in the Scandinavian waters. But then as we're traveling through, this roof of Europe where there was really just gorgeous stuff to see, that playlist provides sort of like a soundtrack to what you're seeing out the window. So it adds another dimension to
Hmm.
the experience, which is cool. And then when you get home afterwards, um, if you want to like flip through your pictures or if you just want to have some music on, you can put that on. And it's amazing what sensations come back just by listening to the music, which is cool. So then I decided, because I don't wear perfume, but I do like body wash
Hmm.
and hand cream, which is kind of subtle. So I found this website. It's called Scandinisk, and it sells these products that they believe smell like Scandinavia. I don't know if they do, but I did buy some hand lotion because one thing I've learned is that when you're traveling, especially in close quarters, perfume is kind of a no-no just
Hmm.
because it can get so strong and then the mix of different things. And some people are allergic and bothered by that, but body wash will and hand cream will leave sort of a faint
Hmm.
residue that or residual smell that you can enjoy and the whole bus doesn't have to be subjected to
Right.
it. So that's kind of fun. And again, you know, when you get home, that smell, and I've since bought a candle in this same collection, can kind of immerse you in that because smell is very evocative. They've done all kinds of scientific studies about how large an area of the brain is used to process
Right.
smells. So that was cool. And then I'm a reader too, not just literature about the country and the geography and the climate and all that, but what sort of books come out of that part of the world. And Scandinavia is a really rich
Hmm.
area of literature. A lot of people have read the Frederick Bachman books, which is A Man Called Uva, which eventually turned into a movie, um, which, like most movies, is nowhere near as good as the book because they transplanted it to an American um, scene in the movie, and so it kind of loses its Scandinavianism, and
Mm.
that's a really big part of the book. But anyway, I digress. Joe Nesbo writes great thrillers. That whole genre is called Nordic noir,
Mm.
and so I read one of her books before we left. I also took a couple on audio so that I could listen during the long legs aboard the motor coach. So, yeah, you can sometimes find books that are, indigenous of the area,
Mm.
and which means they reflect to me the characters and the culture and, even the towns and the cities. So, you know, I'm not a big theme park fan, as you know, but I sort of like to try to create my own
Yeah.
little multidisciplinary experience when I'm traveling by adding these different layers. And it just adds to the memories and
Mm.
enhances them. It enhances the experience as it's unfolding, and then it sort of elevates the memories afterwards
Right.
in a way that I'm finding kind of fun. So that's one of my little travel tips. Make a
No,
playlist, buy the
I
hand cream, and get a book
I think
from the
that's
area.
see, it's like doing Epcot without the crowds. Like that's smart. There you go.
Mm. Yeah, it's
You have your own little theme park. I love that. Um,
like a little theme park for one or two.
even better, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
But this was great. I do have to ask, and I didn't send you this question. Were were there a lot of trolls shown there or stat like I feel like it's pumped to me that like trolls are everywhere in Scandinavia, and at least Norway. Is that a thing or is that an American projection?
Oh, Beth, it is so a thing.
Okay.
They are
Phew. Yes.
everywhere. Yes, they are. They are. And I have so many pictures of us yeah, standing there. They have them like to greet you inside the visitor center. They're
Mhm.
standing there, the wooden ones on either side.
Yep.
Um, you can buy them in all the stores, with the beards and the little hats that pulled down real low on their foreheads. Um, oh, yes. And in the parks, you often find them as, carvings or some other type of sculpture, sometimes just for ornaments and sometimes for the kids to climb on.
Nice.
So yes, they are definitely a thing, and they are not an American
Good.
projection, although we do that to a lot of countries. We
Yes.
could go.
Yes.
Yeah, like you will not find leprechauns all over the place,
Right.
real or fake, in Ireland because that's an American overlay. But
Mhm.
no, the trolls, they are definitely a deal.
Okay. Good. I feel better then. I can
Yeah,
remain a fan of trolls because
you
it's real.
should.
So
Yeah. Those kind of trolls, at least, right?
exactly. Yeah. The online trolls, I'm not a fan. Not a fan at
We can
all.
do without.
Exactly. Well, Joanne, this has been great. The trip sounds amazing. I mean, this has always been an area that's sort of been on my radar anyhow, so now definitely is again. I really need to like hit the lottery or something. I have too many places on my to visit list, but Again, thank you for coming on, and I really appreciate your time.
Sure, I'm going to go listen to my playlist and look at my pictures and put my hand cream on and go back there again because just talking about it, I am still friends on Facebook with many of the people that I met on the tour. So I will let them know that we'll be talking about this when this is, hits your channel. Um, and it's just nice to stay in touch with them,
Yeah, that's
because
great.
we shared these memories and I guess it's kind of bonding. I mean, it was only, 2 weeks, but it really introduced me and, to some good people that have become, good friends, even though I don't know if our paths will ever cross again, but
Yeah.
that's one of the things about traveling, keeps your mind open. And I feel fortunate to have had that experience. But like you, I wish I was gone all the time. Yeah.
Well, great. Well, I hope everyone listens and has a great time. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks again to Joanne for joining us today. I hope these episodes inspire you to get out and roam and use those vacation days to the fullest. Please follow or subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. And if you like what we're doing here, please tell a friend, leave a review and a rating. You can also follow me on Instagram or Facebook. Just search The Roaming Yeti. Talk to you soon. Keep roaming.